The young woman stood in the living room in her wedding dress, her sister's hands working the zipper up her back, when their father's bedroom door opened. What they saw made both sisters' blood run cold, a ghost of the nightmare that had nearly destroyed their family just over a year ago. Their father stood in the doorway, his skin a sickly yellow-pale color that shouldn't exist on living flesh. His voice came out hoarse and broken, his eyes unfocused and lost. "What are you doing here?" he asked his own daughters in their own living room, the question itself revealing something terribly wrong. The sisters knew this scene. They'd lived it in December 2023 when their 60-year-old father suffered a rare SAP aneurysm, a brain bleed that doesn't present with typical symptoms. Then, he'd been throwing up, delirious, wandering aimlessly, speaking nonsense. Their mother had rushed him to the hospital despite his protests, arriving just in time for emergency brain surgery. Doctors said waiting even an hour longer could have been catastrophic. He'd made what nurses called a 1 in a million recovery, returning to 98% of his former self. The missing 2%, his short-term memory, served as a constant reminder of how close they'd come to losing him. Before the aneurysm, 8 years prior, their mother's intuition had saved him from a heart attack when he'd insisted he was fine. Now, seeing him pale and disoriented, speaking sentences that didn't connect, slurring words. The daughter's trauma response kicked in immediately. Their younger sister called their mother, who advised taking him to the hospital. Free healthcare meant there was no financial barrier, only their father's stubborn resistance. "I'm perfectly fine," he insisted, his words contradicting everything his appearance communicated. "I know my own body best." "The doctors know best," his daughter retorted, but he flat out refused. What followed was an agonizing performance of deliberate obstruction, grabbing things in slow motion, protesting every step, taking his time on purpose. The daughters, remembering the doctor's warnings about timing being everything, grew desperate. They threatened to call an ambulance if he didn't cooperate. The 5-minute walk to the car became an eternity. He walked as slowly as possible, stopping constantly, being deliberately difficult. His daughter, terrified and frustrated, even pushed him gently in the back when he stopped to protest again. It was like dealing with a toddler, she'd later reflect, the indignity of forcing her father toward medical care weighing heavily on her heart. In the car, he continued his assault, insulting his younger daughter's driving, mocking her for using navigation, claiming he knew the route better, despite getting lost on the same route months earlier. The cruelty escalated until they finally got him to the front desk where their mother waited. They sat together, 3 women sick with worry about the man they loved, their minds replaying the neurosurgery unit, the uncertainty, the trauma of almost losing him. Then came the diagnosis that changed everything: he was hungover. His blood pressure was dangerously high, but he wasn't dying. He was just drunk. The relief they should have felt never came. Instead, their father's punishment began immediately. The entire car ride home, he was childish, petty, and cruel. He told his younger daughter he needed to seriously reconsider his father-daughter relationship with her. He said they'd betrayed him, stabbed him in the back, treated him like a child. The daughters who'd saved his life sat silent, absorbing his rage. At home, it worsened. He refused to eat dinner with his family, taking his plate to another room. He continued targeting his younger daughter until his older daughter told him to leave. He grabbed his coat and disappeared for the night, leaving 3 devastated women behind. His younger daughter, always particularly close to him, spent hours in tears. Their mother couldn't eat. The older daughter couldn't sleep, eventually succumbing to nightmares about finding her father in the neurosurgery unit, not knowing if he'd have permanent brain damage. The next morning brought no apology, only escalation. Both father and daughter were registered for a 10-mile run that day. He'd barely train. Couldn't even complete 5 miles the previous week. When their mother suggested he skip this year's race due to poor training and high blood pressure, he exploded again, accusing them of making him live his life in fear. Then came the cruelest blow. He hid his daughter's race bib, the numbered sheet required for participation. She'd trained diligently for months. He stole her chance to run out of pure spite, saying, "If you're not allowing me to run, I'll do the same back." Even though no one had prevented him from running, their mother found the hidden bib and gave it to the older daughter for safekeeping. The younger daughter refused to speak to her father, the relationship she'd treasured now poisoned by his vindictiveness. These daughters loved their father desperately. The older one had been raised by him while their mother worked full-time. The terror of the neurosurgery unit haunted all three women, keeping them hypervigilant. They'd watched him nearly die twice, both times because he'd insisted he was fine when he absolutely wasn't. He wanted them to trust his judgment about his body, but he'd proven twice that he couldn't be trusted to recognize when he was dying. Now he punished them for the trauma he'd caused, for the fear he'd created, for loving him enough to be cautious even when it annoyed him. Were these daughters wrong to rush their father to the hospital when he displayed symptoms identical to his previous near-fatal aneurysm? Does surviving medical trauma give families the right to be hypervigilant, or should they trust their loved one's judgment even when it's been wrong before? How do you balance respecting someone's autonomy with the terror of watching them die from stubbornness?